Hello and welcome to On the Curbs Pub Chat. This time we're back with a very special episode where I've got a few different guests on, and that's because the topic of this week's episode is Formula One and motorsport in South America. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about all of that. So I've decided to recruit the help of some people, and first of all on that list is none other than Valentina Peña, also best known as La Chica de la Formula One. How are you?
I'm really fine. Thank you so much for this invitation. And I like it how you say it with your British accent. La chica, the F1. Sounds really cool.
I can clip that for you if you want. You can use that on future podcasts.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to use it.
So as I said, Formula One and motorsport in South America, it's something that has kind of piqued my interest over the last few months in particular. And I feel like it's a topic that's just not talked about enough. I mean, we have the Brazilian Grand Prix, and we've had a little bit of Formula E and Extreme E there in the past. And obviously, if you go way back in Formula One history, we had like the Argentinian Grand Prix, and I think Chile at one point had it. But you don't have a lot else. I mean, you have to kind of go up to Mexico and Central America for a bit more of it. And I'm just kind of curious as to why that is, because it seems like a bit of an untapped resource. And I thought, who better to ask than someone who's actually from South America? So, with that in mind, I want to just ask you, first of all, what first got you into motorsport? Because I feel like you'll have a slightly different answer to people I normally talk to.
Yeah, I mean, like many people ask you that when you're from Colombia, because like the main sport here, it's not like in England that a lot of people, like watch Formula One. It's more like soccer and like cycling are like the two biggest sports here. So because other sports, where you can see more Colombians that are easier,
Hmm.
like to have people from our country. So more sport is really expensive. So, like you don't get to have a lot of pilots from this part of the world. So it's really funny because since I was a kid, like I really liked cars, like all my favorite video games were like Forza, Ray Tracer, like everything with cars. I love them. But it was like, like unconscious, like I wasn't conscious, like I like cars. So it was just like that. And my dad, he literally like watches like every single sport every weekend. I mean, like he's the typical dad that just going to sit in the couch and it's going to watch like Premier League, Serie A, La Liga, baseball, NBA. Like he watches everything. So
He's
he really
living a good
liked
life.
Formula One. He really liked Formula One because he got into it when Montoya was, like
Hmm.
racing, and he got there, and it was really funny because like he got there, and he loved Formula One, but I was really, like really small when Juan Pablo Montoya was racing, so I wasn't like conscious of what he was doing. But later he still watches Formula One, and there was like this battle thing, like Sebastian was doing everything so good, and he was winning like every single race with Red Bull, like 2010, 2011,
Hmm.
and I just sit in the couch with him, like I was just like there, and I was like, I started watching Formula One like that, like the weekends I was like, oh, that guy with the blue car, like sounds like interesting. He wins every single weekend. Like I was like, I got into it thanks to Vettel. That's why he's my favorite driver forever. And it was so funny because like I watch, like in the weekends. But it's really funny because like when I was in the university, I don't know, but something happened that made me, like got more into motorsport. Like I already watched Formula One. Uh, but something like clicked on me, and I just say like, I don't want to be a sports journalist that talks about soccer. I want to be a sports journalist that talks about Formula One, about motorsport. So I just got like really deep into it, like watching every single practice, like looking for information to get to know more about Formula One. So it was just like that. So it was really funny because it was like, I don't know, I
I'm
just got that
fascinated to know what
feeling.
happened there.
Yeah, it was like
Like,
2018, and I just say like, okay, this is not going to be a thing just for the weekends like I did before. This is going to be my life. So it started like that.
I was thinking because 2018 Formula One wise, you had a few interesting things, but in like the history of F1, I wouldn't say that was necessarily the most exciting season. So I'm really interested as to why that was the moment that it clicked for you. Like, yes,
Yeah, I
this is
mean
what I
like
want to do.
it was so weird because like my boss in that time, he really loved Formula One. And one day, I think that was one day he commented like one race, like this happened, blah blah blah. And I just like, I don't know, like something changed in me and I just got full into it.
So, kind of off the path back of that, then once you decided that this was what you wanted to do with it, how did you become more involved with it? Were you already studying like sports journalism, or was there kind of a set path for how you were planning to go about it, or did you kind of have to make it up as you go along?
Well, that's a difficult question.
Sports
It was like a
journalism?
process because like before, like I told you, like I watched Formula One since 2012, but it was just like a weekend thing, some races, like soccer, like you don't watch every single game. Uh, but I don't know, like I just started, like bit by bit. So I started like watching the whole weekend, started to watching the practices because before I didn't do it. So I started to watch like every single practice, quali, and it was really important for me, like when I wasn't like understanding some stuff, like like looking for some other journalists, watching them videos, because at the beginning, like it's really different when you just watch Formula One as a fan some weekends that when you want to get into the motorsport journalism. So you need to understand what's an undercut, what's an overcut, like a lot of stuff. So it was like, okay, what is this? What is this going on? So I used to watch like a lot of videos like Diego Mejia, like many, Colombian, Spanish, Mexican, Argentinian journalists. And I just like started to get in touch, and I'm like really, like I'm really geek. Like I really like studying. So I just became like obsessed with it. So I basically like all the day what I was doing was just reading about Formula One, watching everything, like trying to understand every single detail. And I think that that's what right now, like, I mean, like I don't consider myself an expert, but like I can have a good conversation about it. So it's just because like, like Formula One, that's like such a technical sport. You need to be like really geek into it.
So did you notice then that, because essentially what you're saying there is you taught yourself, you just went straight in, and there wasn't not any resources there, but it kind of like you say, you had to reach out to other sports journalists around the place from different countries maybe and see what they were doing, and then you kind of took their lead from it a bit and built your own way and that's kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, like for example, I like I'm a sports journalist, so I really like had like role models. So I remember a lot like this Mexican journalist, Giselle Sarur. She did like all these interviews. Like I always watch her interviews, what she asked to the pilots, what she was doing, like the comments during the races. Oh, he's saying this. Oh, this is strategy. Oh, this can happen. So I started to learn a lot. And not only, like not only people that spoke Spanish, like also British journalists.
Mm.
Also, like there's a Brazilian that's called Julian Cesaroli, and I even like started. She has a blog, so she has a blog that like, fans can send her articles, and if she likes them, she posts it. So I remember like I sent her articles and she posts them. So it was like that, like just trying
That
to
must have been
start to get in
encouraging as
touch.
well for you to like, oh, she actually thinks this is good enough to repost.
Yeah, it was. I remember the first time she posted something about me. It was an article like Max Verstappen, love him or hate him. Like there's no in between. You just love him or you just hate him. And that was 2019 season. I mean, that wasn't Max in the dominant car. That was 2019 where he had that shitty Red Bull. Sorry for the word, but that Red Bull that wasn't that nice was like the third or the fourth car on the grid, and he won like 3 races with that, and it was like just like an amazing season for him. And I was like, you love him or you hate him, like there's no in between. And I wrote like all an article about that, and she really liked it, and all in Portuguese because I speak
Mm.
Portuguese. So she was like, oh, she's Colombian, she speaks good Portuguese. So that was for me like, like like a journalist that actually goes to the paddock like every single week and every single race, saying that it's really important to me.
Oh no, definitely. Especially like you say, having these role models, not only that you can reach out to them, but then they actually reach back out to you and like what you do, and it's encouraging them. And if someone who's made it is kind of giving you that confidence, then you get that boost of like, oh, maybe I can actually do this.
Yeah, for sure, it was like that. But I still had like something missing because like I started to work like in TV in Colombia and everything, but everything was like so soccer based, and I was like kind of pissed off because like there was no like space for talking about Formula One. So like I created like a section, like a segment like in my news TV show, like about Formula One, but wasn't every weekend, was like really, inconsistent because they don't like every single weekend they didn't like it because
Mm-hmm.
Formula One is not the most important sport here in Colombia for,
There's no
like the
Colombians in
media.
it.
Yeah. So that was one of the things that kind of like encouraged me to create like my social media accounts, because like I felt like I was like frustrated, like I want to talk about Formula One, but I don't have like the space to do it. So there was like a TV presenter for that worked with me in the channel, and he was like, "Why don't you just create a TikTok? I mean, like, you should do TikToks about Formula One." I was like, "Who's gonna do TikToks about Formula One?" Like, I thought TikTok was just for dancing. I didn't even have TikTok. Like, I didn't use it.
I can't imagine you without TikTok. Though.
Yeah, but he encouraged me, and I started, and I loved it. So that's what has me here, actually, because like I'm a journalist, but many people has known like about my job because of social media. So it's really nice.
And as well, like you're saying that you want to talk about this, and you kind of been the only one who is feeling that frustration, regardless of if it was men or women there. There's got to be a big following for Formula One and motorsport generally in South America. It's just because there's maybe not as many pilots in there as you might like to be. Doesn't mean there aren't still people following it. So it was kind of, you spotted a gap in the market, and you've really taken it.
Yeah, for sure. Because like many people think that oh, there's not a Colombian pilot, so people don't like Formula One in Colombia. It's true that maybe like they don't like it as much as before, because like when Juan Pablo Montoya, like my dad tells me, that was like a hype, like everybody was like with the caps, everything. When the races was like, national holiday, that was like such a huge thing. But I think that Drive to Survive helped a lot. Like a lot of people got into Formula One again. And also like 2021 season, not even Checo, because I don't see here in Colombia personally, like Mexicans don't like when I say this, but I don't see here in Colombia like that Checo hype, like you see in Mexico. Like when you're in Mexico, you see everybody with Checo caps and all because, well, he's Mexican. But here in Colombia, it's not like you see everybody with Red Bull and everybody with Checo. No, you see Mercedes, you see Ferrari, you see like everything. So it's really nice because like, it's not only because of Checo, it's more like Drive to Survive, the 2021 season that many people, got into Formula One again with such an exciting season. So all those things like came together. And I think that really helped, like growing the sport in South America, because as you said at the beginning of the interview, we only have like Brazilian Grand Prix, and Brazil is kind of like... It's South America, but it's like another continent because it's another culture, another language. It's so different. It's even easier for us to go to Mexico than go to Brazil. So
it's mad when you think about it as well. But it just kind of leads me on to my next point, because then from like your personal and professional point of view, how have you seen F1 and motorsport evolve in South America since you started out? Because like you say, Drive to Survive had a big impact, but do you think if that hadn't come along, do you think that just the 21 season and just kind of people like yourself finding this gap in the market to talk about Formula One would have still allowed it to grow? Or do you think that Drive to Survive had a lot more to do with it?
So I definitely see that, like, since I started like creating content and all this stuff, it's grown like lots, because I remember when I started, like, like I just go to these events and everything, and there was like just few people like in the gym, like you never saw like the people with the caps or everything. Right now I'm at the gym and they're like, "Oh, you're the girl that talks about Formula One. Did you watch the race?" Like everybody, like everybody's so into Formula One when you go to even not just Formula One events, like for example Juan Pablo's son, Sebastián Montoya. Oh my gosh, his events are always like so full, and he's in Formula 3. It's not even Formula 2, but Formula 3. Like everybody's so hyped with him. It's like he's going to be like Juan Pablo, he's going to get to Formula 1. So I think that helps a lot too. Like it's my position. So yeah, you see it like even like in your work, like people, like, "Oh, I watched the race, yeah, like this race," and they comment with you. And those were things like I remember in high school didn't happen. I mean, like in high school, I never have someone to talk about Formula One. And when I was in college, like neither, like I like in college, I was the weirdo girl that stayed at weekends at home because she was watching Formula One. So it was like really weird. But right now
it's like commitment though. I love the commitment.
Yeah, I had the commitment, but it was so nice because like in college, like everybody just wants to go out, and I'm like, no, I have Australian Grand Prix. You have to stay up.
I've got to be
until 2 a.m. Thank you. Thanks. Next. But right now it's like so common. I mean, like I have besties, like best friends that really are like, "Oh, can we watch your Formula One race?" Like my best friend, she's coming and she's like, "We're going to watch the race together, girl. Like we're going to go to a bar and everything." And I'm like, well, it's fun.
And importantly, then it'll be on at the bar. It will actually it'll get shown in public, and you won't have to go home necessarily
Yeah,
to watch it.
I mean, it's of course it's not like in the UK, because also like the schedule, it's complicated. Like this weekend, because it's Canada, we have like an afternoon race, but normally like races in Colombia and South America. I think that's also like a matter, because like in Colombia it's 8 a.m. So at 8 a.m. you don't want to go to the bar to watch a race.
You're
like,
still out from the Saturday night, maybe. You can just keep going.
I mean, like I'm used to watch Formula One races like in my couch in PJs and my breakfast, my arepa with like really I'm just like watching Formula One like that. But when it's like, afternoon races and everything, like lots of people do like lots of events. Like this weekend I'm going to an event like, Sheraton, like the famous like hotel and everything. Like they got involved into organizing Formula One events, and that's a thing like before I would have never imagined,
It's quite bizarre. And I mean, like you say, having someone like Seb Montoya there for Colombia specifically, that helps. Like, even if it is Formula 3, I mean, Formula 3 is great on another thing because it's just crazy racing. But you're seeing a couple of other drivers now from not necessarily Colombia, but from South America as well. I mean, you had Maldonado briefly. You have still Tatiana Calderon. You've got Matis Cesares in F1 Academy. And do you think that then you've got a little bit of a mix there? Is that helping drive that forward? And do you think then, because like we were saying about Drive to Survive, it made Formula One so much bigger just globally, do you think that would then help maybe get a second Grand Prix in South America at all? Or
yeah, I think that like it really is going to help, like I think that one of the main reasons why Formula One got back into Mexico in 2015 is because of Checo, because they had Checo there. He wasn't in Red Bull still, but he was racing in Formula One. I mean, what's like, like a huge reason for having, like a Grand Prix there. And
it's like Max with Zandvoort.
Yeah, it's a really nice example. So I really do think like if Sebastian arrives to Formula One, because maybe like, Tatiana is more complicated, given, like the different circumstances, the age and many things. Sebastian, like right now it's maybe like Colombian's best card, if you want to say it like that. But I like every day I pray for him to get to Formula One, because I know it's going to help a lot, it's going to help a lot to grow the sport in the country. Barranquilla, it's actually like many people love here in Colombia. They say like, we're not going to have Formula One in Barranquilla, but like negotiations are actually a thing, like it's not that fake as many people think. So I really think that having a Colombian pilot or like a South American pilot is going to help a lot, because we cannot forget, for example, about Franco Colapinto.
Yeah.
And that he's doing really great in Formula 3, like his second season. He already won races. He has like podiums. I think he did podium last week. Yeah, last race. But he's doing really well too. The thing about Argentina is like, economic situation is not really nice. So maybe like Colombia, it's not the best, but
it'd be still nice to see then maybe like it'd be a way to bring together some South American countries though. Like, we'll help you get it in this country, say it's in Chile, just for argument's sake, and then but we can all kind of bet together and get it, because it's good for Chile. It'll still be great for everything else, because we can get so much secondary stuff off the back of it.
Yeah, and there's also like a lot of investment, like for example, the people that want to bring Formula One to Colombia are like the same organizers as Mexico GP. There's also like a Spanish group. So, it's like huge people from different parts that are trying actually, because they see, like a potential. And also like Colombia, it's really like, if you see like the map, like if we talk about geographics, it's really, like really convenient, because like it's in the point of South America. So you can get like fans from Peru, Panama, Ecuador, Venezuela. So it's really nice. So it's like, really strategic to have a Grand Prix there. So I really hope it's going to happen.
Plus, from a logistics and calendar point of view, it'd be really cool to have those three kind of at the tail end of the season again. You could have Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, and have a nice kind of tracking down, and it kind of keeps it in that space. It's not just kind of beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. It's all kind of nicely put together and really creates a better atmosphere than I think personally whenever they do that. In the European season, they tighten it all together, and it kind of it gets a nice vibe going, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Because like right now, like many people kind of gets pissed off because we have like 3 Grand Prix in the US. So it's like, okay, like 3 in the
here,
US,
guys. Come to us.
come to us. Yeah. So, but money's also a thing. Like we cannot lie. So it's a reality we just cannot deny.
You say money then, do you think that is the main challenge still facing South America on this front? Or do you think there's a
Yeah,
couple of other things that
I
people
think
might not think about?
I think money it's really important because you have, like you also have to take into account that we have, like, like for us it's not the same because like when you talk about Formula One, you talk in euros, you're talking in dollars. And when you come to Colombian, our money, it's not, like we don't have that. Um, so it's really complicated for pilots to get there because like everything is so much more expensive for Colombian pilots, Latin American pilots. So it's really hard to them to actually get to go to Europe and race there. And the same thing happens with a Grand Prix here. I mean, like it's the same thing because like we cannot deny like Mexico and Brazil are probably like if we talk about economics, are probably the two like strongest countries in the region. So it kind of makes sense that they have like their Grand Prix. But I do think we have potential to having another, like if we have like different investments. And I think having a pilot is going to be key, like having Sebastian Franco, like South American pilot, can be key because it's going to like it's going to catch the attention of many sponsors. So I think it's going to help a lot.
I'm curious as well because I don't know enough about this as I probably should, but so maybe you can help out with this. In terms of grassroots, starting out in karting and kind of lower
Yeah.
formula racing, is that still pretty tricky then in Colombia, as that's the
Yeah.
example for you, or has that kind of got
It,
better? Have you noticed, or is it still very much a
it's
money problem?
it it's really it's really complicated because one, it's really expensive, like much more expensive that like doing it in the US or in Europe. And we also don't have like the same amount of tracks. Like in Colombia we have, I mean, if we talk about cars, like no karting tracks, but for example, just
Yeah,
like cars, we have like 3 tracks. I mean, like we don't have a lot of tracks here. So it happens the same with karting. Like, if you're not in Bogota, because like everything around Bogota, like you have a lot of karting stuff. But if you're from another city, it's going to be so complicated. We don't have like, I mean, we have like Vortex and Rotax, like championships, but it's not like in UK that you have like these like hundreds of championships going on and you can have like a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of pilots, there's a lot of racing. I mean, like here pilots sometimes like karting races are like 10 pilots, and then these pilots travel to the US or to Europe and they face like races with 50 pilots. So it's like
yeah.
it's like such a huge challenge for them. And it's really important for them to be able of actually going outside of the country in a young age, because they're going to have like that possibility of actually like experience real kart racing because here in Colombia we have to admit it, like it's not real kart racing.
And there's more pressure as well on those drivers than to make it whenever they do go and travel, say, to the US or the Europe, because
Yeah.
there's less of them, but then obviously that's easier, I suppose, to get out of there because there's not as many to compete against. But then you have to really, you're kind of representing your country and your continent in a bigger way there when you go off to like the US or Europe.
Yeah, and not only like representing your country, I think it's also like like I'm doing this, like my parents, my sponsors, like all this money is going into it. And what if I don't make it? I mean like it's such a huge pressure that they have to deal with it, because like there's like a really good Colombian pilot, his name is Nicolas Baptiste, and last year he was racing in Formula Regional, that I'm actually like commenting that category and everything.
Yes.
And yeah, so he was such a good pilot. But this year he just like money ran out. I mean, like you can be rich here in Colombia, but it just comes to a point in this, like Peter series,
Mm.
that it's just so expensive that there comes a point where okay, I didn't get the sponsors, I didn't make it because like money ran out. So it's really
We see that all
complicated
the
and it's
time with good
pressure.
drivers as well. It's very frustrating because you know the driver has got what it takes, but it's just
Yeah.
this annoying obstacle again.
Yeah, and that's really complicated. And also because like maybe in countries like UK, in Europe, like brands, like sponsors, there's much more of them because
They're
like
more willing
Formula
to take the
One
risk as
and
well.
motorsport racing is it's stronger there, so they like get attached to it much easier. But here in Colombia, like actually having like a company or something that actually wants to sponsor a pilot, it's not that easy.
So it always comes down to money, unfortunately, and I wish that wasn't the case.
Yeah, it's complicated, but I think like not everything is bad, like I think we have made like such a huge process. Like right now we have Colombian pilots like Sebastian in Formula 3. We have like in Formula Regional we have another one that's called Lucas Medina. We have Jerónimo Berrio in Formula 4, like Spanish Formula 4. There's like 2 Colombian pilots there, so we have like many pilots,
Moving in
like
the
they're
right direction.
racing different categories. They're like in the right direction. They have like the sponsors, so I think like there's like a good future going on.
So do you think then that, as not to put too much more pressure on Montoya because he's only Formula 3, but do you think if and when he makes it to Formula 1, that will be the point where things start becoming noticeably better, because there's that kind of, you can visually see him in Formula 1 there?
Yeah, I can visually see him, like not only because he has the talent, but also like he has his father right beside him. I mean, like many people don't realize what Juan Pablo Montoya meant in the moment. I mean, like there was like this Latino guy facing Michael Schumacher, winning him races. Like that was nuts. And he's really important in Formula 1 world. So he has the talent, he has the contacts, he's like Red Bull athlete, he's in the Red Bull Junior Academy. So he has many things that can actually, like get to work for him getting to Formula 1. I don't know when, but I really, like trust he's going to make it. And once he does that, like everything's going to start changing, because like companies, like everybody would love to be involved in Formula 1. So
you just need that door to open a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm like, because why I say this, because I see, like, I've been in Mexico a lot. Like I have a lot of Mexican friends, Formula 1 Mexican friends and everything. And they talk to me about how sport has grown there since Checo is in Formula 1. And it's like incredible. Like before it was like nothing. And right now you go to Mexico and everybody watches the races. Everybody knows about Formula 1. Every single brand, Mexican brand, is involved with Formula 1. I mean, like I'm Colombian, but I work more with Mexico than Colombia. So it's really funny. It's like really like it's another thing. So I really hope that if Sebastian makes it to Formula 1, it's going to be the same thing in Colombia.
Well, it's been fascinating to get your opinion on all of this and kind of learn a bit more about the South American perspective on Formula 1 motorsport in general. So I want to thank you very much for your time to talk to me today. And I just want to keep seeing whatever you do, keep bringing it forward, because it's awesome stuff.
Yeah, thank you so much, Thiemo, for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here. I'm always glad to talk to you. You're a really good talker, so so it's really nice to me always to be here.